Hi everyone, thanks for joining Vitae Sports YouTube channel. We've got another great interview for you today with Andre Adams. Andre is an old friend of ours who's been with us for probably about 14 years now. He's obviously had a great career with Nottinghamshire in the County Championship, also with New Zealand, and latterly coaching career in the Big Bash in Sheffield Shield with New South Wales and Sydney Sixers, where he won both tournaments last year. So hope you enjoy. Andre, great to see you, mate. How are you keeping?
No, not bad, not bad. It's nice and warm over here and getting a bit of a tan back. So winter's been interesting for everyone, hasn't it? So made it through. Looking forward to actually getting some cricket underway.
Yeah, hopefully it won't be too long now. How have things been for you over there during the what everyone's gone through?
A bit mixed. It's not quite as bad as in the UK, but I think it's been taken reasonably seriously down here, and good timing for us really, with it being winter. And then a couple of sort of spurts and fits and starts with it coming back, but everyone's suffering from that. So I think the biggest thing is just the unknown. Everyone's sort of holding their breath as to what's going to happen. How are we going to deal with it? Are we going to just have to live with it, or So it's been an interesting period.
Yeah, sure. James, just like to have a good catch up really today, for old time's sake, a bit about your career and where you are now. You've had a fascinating career, and it's still going very upward at the moment. So, but just tell us a bit about where it all started as a youngster for you.
Well, my parents are West Indian, so I sort of didn't really have much choice other than to play cricket, I guess. I played all sorts of sports growing up. Tennis and hockey and soccer, football, in the UK. But and I sort of settled on cricket really. I just enjoyed it more. It was awesome in terms of I enjoyed the culture more. It was more of a team-based sport. And then I played a little bit of rugby growing up, not a hell of a lot. Rugby's not a big sport in the West Indies, so obviously massive in New Zealand. But I was pretty well sunk into the culture of my parents, and I didn't really see much rugby until I got much older. But then played a little bit of cricket, made a couple of cricket teams in terms of once I was about 20, and then from then on I sort of got a bit bigger and a bit stronger and enjoyed the game a bit more, and sort of flourished a bit from there.
Yeah, okay. I mean, you obviously come through the ranks at Auckland, sort of broke into the New Zealand team. How was that as a feeling for you to go and break into international cricket?
It was strange because I sort of the only rep team in New Zealand in Auckland I made was the Auckland. I made the North Harbour under 20 team, so that was the first rep team I made. Was when I was like 19, nearly 20. So I didn't come through any age group or first 11 stuff. And so to get picked for New Zealand was a bit of a surprise, because I was just so blasé about just trying to perform, and I wasn't even looking at higher honours. But once I got picked, it was weird, it was surreal. I debuted in Sharjah, and it was a bit of a shadow New Zealand team, so even that didn't feel real because there were so many guys on debut or youngsters. It wasn't until the VB series in 2002 that I actually felt like it was the real deal, and it was against Australia and South Africa, which was a pretty awesome experience.
Yeah, sure. I mean, just with your New Zealand career, Joe, I mean, you've obviously only played one test. You played 42 ODIs. Look, I've known you obviously for many years. You offer so much in so many different ways. The game, obviously, pattern ball first and foremost. But do you look back with a little tinge of regret that you didn't get more opportunities? It doesn't feel like you really got a fair crack of the whip.
I guess if I live in that sort of story, you could say that. And I think I was pretty happy living in that story, sort of playing victim. But I think you sort of are what you get what you're given, if that makes sense. Like you get what you earn, and I was probably a bit too focused, looking back, a bit too focused on what everyone else was doing instead of actually just worrying about myself and how I could get better. I think I could have played more Test cricket in terms of I was ready to play more Test cricket. It just didn't work out. I played one Test, we won that Test, and I feel very fortunate. That one Test opened up a lot of doors. So, you know, I feel like even though I could have played more Test cricket for New Zealand or more cricket for New Zealand, if I had done that, I wouldn't have had my opportunities at Nottinghamshire and at Essex and to play in the county game. And I feel very fortunate, and I'm very lucky to have done that. And I've got some great mates in the UK, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Great. And so, yeah, I mean, you touched on the county game. So you come over to Essex 2005, did 2 seasons. So how did that go?
When I came to start with, I struggled with the frequency of games, not so much the expectation, because they actually just made me feel like, for the most part, just part of the team. And it was also like playing with some guys like Sir Alistair Cook, you know, Ravi Bapara, we played with Ronnie O'Reilly, James Foster, Andy Flower, Grant Flower, James Middlebrook, Darren Goff, Alex Tudor, incredible, Graham Napier, like Mark Catini. There's just this incredible wealth of cricketers, and some very cool people. And yeah, I had a great time to start with, and then I struggled with my second year. I really struggled with the frequency of games and the expectation of just running in and bowling fast, and I didn't feel like I was able to be myself there. I felt like I always had to be this one thing, and yeah, that was a good learning curve. Again, you learn, you know, fairly philosophical now, but you learn more in the times that you don't like than you do in the times that you do, I think. So.
Sure. And then 2007, I think that's when we met. That we were introduced by. Why are you laughing?
Oh, mate, I'll never forget that phone call. But yeah, anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I think we were introduced by Lou Vincent.
Yeah, we were. Yeah.
Yeah, I seem to remember calling you middle of the night. I think our time. Lou would run me up and said, "You've got to speak to Andre, great guy, and he wants to come over." Yeah. So, yeah, was that how you remembered it?
That's not how I remember it, but it's a great story. Yeah, I told him I wasn't interested, and then you didn't hear that part and told me it was all sorted the next morning. So it was it worked out for the best, mate. That's what the story. And that's, mate. Like, I think that was fate. You know, like I just wasn't interested in coming over. But I was up the mountain, and there was very bad. It was poor reception. I said, "Mate, I'll call you back," and you're like, "Yeah, okay." And I had said, "Look, I'm not interested, but I'll speak to you tomorrow." And then you said, "Oh, mate, it's all sorted, going to Knots." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I actually spoke to my wife that night. She said, "Oh, are you going to go?" I was like, "Well, I'm not really interested." And she said, "Okay, well, but what if it's Knots?" And I was like, "Well, if it's Knots, I'll go." And it was it was Knots of all the counties, and it worked out pretty well.
Yeah. No, I can remember Lou really singing your praises, and I think I was like, it sounds quite a bit miserable. It sounds quite miserable, to be honest, Lou. So that would explain why.
Yeah, just my general demeanour.
So Knots, tell us about Knots, mate. I mean, fantastic success story for you and Knots. Tell us about your time there.
It was like something out of a dream, really, in terms of where I was. I was in a pretty dark place with cricket, and I was actually going to retire. I think I'd spoken to my wife, Ardeen, maybe a couple of days before that, saying that I had enough. It wasn't bringing me any joy. And then, you know, to get the phone call from you and for it to be Knots, and I had such an affinity with Knots through my 2 seasons at Kimberley. And it felt so familiar. It actually felt like home. That's the weird thing about Nottinghamshire. It already felt like home. So when I went, you know, I got picked up from the train station by Stephen Fleming. You know, we had a great chat in the car on the way up to, might have been Carr Colston Cricket Club, where Franksy was having his benefit. And it was interesting because I knew most of the guys. I got on pretty well with most of the guys, but it just felt like home again. And Mick and the players, and especially Charlie Shrek, they put in this big effort to make me feel welcome, make me feel like I was part of the group. And you know, Shreky's one of my best mates, and Paul Franks, and it was just, man, it was like a dream come true. You go from hating the game to loving the game, and all of a sudden, you know, I'm playing cricket with Graham Swan and Ryan Sidebottom and Mark Elam and Chris Reed. You know, Reedy's an amazing man, amazing talent. And we had similar stories actually, which was pretty cool. Like there was a few guys who were sort of like outcasts, but reasonably gifted, and we sort of banded together. And yeah, the culture, it made me feel really welcome, made me feel very special, and it was like being back at home.
Yeah, great. And then you performed pretty much every year. 2010 was your year. You topped the bowling averages in the country with 68 wickets. Won the title at Old Trafford. I think you got the winning wicket as well, if I remember rightly. I was there on that day. What did that feel like? Like you say, from going from a place where you were that bad, where you want to quit, to a couple of years later, you're the main man of the championship, and you're winning the title.
Yeah, it was the main thing there. I think the main lesson from that for me was about feeling valued. And so, you know, where you don't feel valued, you don't even realise you don't feel valued until someone makes you feel valued again. And that was like, so I was desperate to repay the faith, because look, Knots could have chosen anyone. You know, mate, I was selling TV brackets when they called. You know, I was in no real condition as a cricketer. Certainly not the right mindset to come and be, you know, an overseas player. But they decided I was the right man, and I thought, well, I need to repay that faith. And I sort of spent most of my time trying to repay that faith up until my last season, where, you know, I was okay, but I wasn't as good as I could be in terms of physically. It had pretty much been some overs under the belt by then. But it was, yeah, I spent most of my time not trying to repay the faith and the gratitude, and I could never repay the amount of joy they gave me, being able to be a cricketer at Nottinghamshire and be able to wear that cap and walk into Trent Bridge every day, and to be able to call all those people my friends. Like, there's nothing I can do that can repay that.
Yeah, I know completely. The feeling was reciprocated from Knots, who've obviously spoken incredibly highly of you at the time and since. So, and I know, you know, Mick Newell, for one, I think would put you as one of his top players he's ever managed in the game. Just moving on to, I mean, then 2011 was another great year, but it was also a great year for you in Auckland. You went back. You won the ODI competition, you won the T20s, you went into the Champions League. So, you know, how was that for you, then going and, you know, ripping it up back home as well and going abroad in the Champions League?
It was quite rewarding. It was cool because we're starting to bring through some young players like Colin Monroe and Colin de Grandhomme, and you know, Ronnie Hira and Marty Gupta was just starting to really fly. And that was awesome. Like that was again. Like, you know, I was loving the cricket again. I'd always played, it sounds arrogant, but I'd always done really well for Auckland. My record for Auckland is phenomenal. But that didn't hold as much value for me as starting to bring through young players and like lead the way and be a leader and help young people come through. And I was starting to do that, so I changed my behaviour on the pitch instead of being so grumpy. Try to be more helpful, and you know, it was just the time at Knots really offered me an opportunity to start being the person I wanted to be. And so, like, being back in Auckland, it's always a joyous occasion going home, but cricket in New Zealand needs as much help as it can get. And I felt like if I could still be something of a leader there, then I would help those young guys come through. And Auckland could win some titles, and I could be part of that. So yeah, it was pretty cool. The trip to South Africa and India for the Champions League, but great experiences, because some of our guys had never been overseas in a big tournament like that. Like for most of our guys had, but some of our guys hadn't, and it was a big thing, like wide-eyed. You know, oh, there's AB de Villiers, and you know, like it was pretty awesome.
Great. And again, you just mentioned, which I know has always been important to you, bringing on other players. You know, my experiences with you, we've often spoke about dressing room culture, things like that. And I know, like, you know, we chat about all sorts of things off the pitch, whether it's PlayStation or telly, and relaxing in that way. But I think, like with you, I mean, my experience with you, Dre, was like, you know, you don't suffer fools gladly if someone's not pulling the weight. You know, you know, you won't be happy with them and quite possibly pick them up on it. But you know, you will give such full support for people who are giving everything, whether they go through a bad time, struggling, whatever. I mean, how important is having a senior figure in the changing room who's there, and that just general dressing room culture to you?
Yeah. I think, look, well, dressing room culture is everything. It's driven by the coaches. It's driven, like, your leaders are your coaches. That's my experience. You want your coaches to be the strong leaders of culture. They choose the personnel. They choose the people who are front and centre, and they choose the people who lead the behaviours. So one thing that astounded me when I came into Notts was, like, Mick was in charge, but he wasn't, you know, cracking the whip. He was there, and he knew what personalities he wanted. He worked really closely with Flem and with Reedy, who was going to be the next captain. We had Graham Swan and Charlie Schreck and Paul Franks, and we had all these amazing senior players who really wanted to win, and they always put performance ahead of anything else. So, like, and when I say that, that's not at the expense of being good people. It's like, we had all these people who really wanted to win and wanted to play for each other. And there was very little self-promotion going on, but as a result, many guys ended up going and playing for England and doing really well. So the culture shifted significantly towards the back end of my career, and it was interesting being part of such a dominant culture to start with, in terms of the way that everyone helped each other, and it was all about the team. And then it shifted away from that, and there were some young guys who were more about their own performance and wanted to play for England and wanted to do very, very well. And the culture started to slide in terms of away from team and more to individual. And so that was a really cool learning experience, was to see that and think, well, really want to make sure if I get into coaching that team is first. And those little learning experiences are very, very powerful. But for me, culture was always about team. And performance was in there, 100%, but not at the expense of the team.
Yeah, sure. And obviously, you know, you left Notts towards the end of your career, moved to Hampshire, where again I know you had a positive influence on the team there. Speaking to Giles White, so how did that feel to leave Notts and then to experience a new county at the twilight of your career, shall we call it?
Dirty, felt weird, and I was going down there because Giles and Dale Beckenstein really wanted me to help lead some bowlers, and it was really odd because I was so entrenched in the culture at Nottinghamshire, and I was such a Notts player that going to another county felt really, really weird, because I was a Colpack player, not an overseas player. That makes sense. I started as an overseas player, and then I became like a local. So it was different moving to another county as a local, because I'd never moved clubs in New Zealand. I always played for Auckland. So it was a weird feeling going to Hampshire, but I had a job to do, and I tried to help educate young bowlers. But 3 months is never going to be long enough. But yeah, I'm grateful for the experience. Giles is an awesome person. I love him. He's awesome. And there's some cool guys down there, like Jimmy Adams. I got some great characters down there. And it was a wonderful experience. It was a wonderful experience.
Good. So then that was the end of career for you, but quickly into coaching. As I say, you've obviously been learning. You were learning way before you finished. So I'd imagine the transition seemed pretty seamless to some extent, was it for you when you moved into coaching?
I was just having this discussion today, actually, around how much help you need when you transition out. And just talking about it today, it felt like it was seamless, but it really wasn't. Like when I started diving into how I felt about it and my reactions about stuff now, it was seamless in the fact that, yeah, I knew I wanted to be a coach, but it wasn't seamless in the fact that I spent 20 years doing this thing and having purpose every day. And now that purpose shifted, and it wasn't quite meeting the standard or the expectation that I wanted. So it was really, yeah, it was an interesting time. There were some, I'll say, dark moments. It's really weird, man. Like, you go from being able to bring 17,000 people to their feet in a 2020 match at Trent Bridge to not being able to do that. Really is quite emasculating. But yeah, it's going to take a bit more delving into myself to find out exactly where I want to go with it. But it's it's a tough transition. But I'm very fortunate that I had coaching, and I feel like I'm okay at it, and I feel like I've got a purpose with it, and I love working with the people I work with.
Great. And tell us a bit about your time with the Sixers in New South Wales. Fantastic year last year. Sixers winning the Big Bash. So, yeah, how are you enjoying that? How's that side of things going?
Yeah, intimidating to start with. I'm bowling coach at New South Wales Blues as well, and now an assistant coach, but head of the bowling department. So, my first day I walked in, and we had Stark, Hazelwood, Cummins, and Lyon all in the physio room, and it was, that was an interesting introduction to bowling coaching at New South Wales. But I was fairly confident with what I did, but it was, you're still working with probably the best bowling lineup in the world. So it's been wonderful. It's been an awesome experience. We've got some amazing people, amazingly gifted people. Sean Abbott, Harry Conway, Liam Hatcher. There's so many young men who are amazing at what they do, and just sit underneath that level of Stark, Hazelwood, Cummins, Lyon. So yeah, it's been very, very cool, and it's been nice to be able to strike up relationships with our international lads and be able to help and support them when they come back from international cricket, which I think is an integral part of being a state coach or being a domestic coach, is that you need to be able to help and support them, and they feel like they've got what they need when they go back to international cricket. So that's been a very rewarding experience. There's been some challenging times. It's a massive program. There's lots of bowlers. I'm pretty much the only bowling coach from a senior point of view. It's kind of think on your feet, move as fast as you can, and create as much value as you can, and connect to everyone as well as you can in the time that you have with them. So yeah, it's been very cool. The Sixers was like one of the, we won the Sheffield Shield last year as well, but it was by default rather than in a final, because we're so far ahead. And I had 3 goals when I came over here. First one was win the Sheffield Shield. Second one was to win the Big Bash, and the third one I haven't achieved yet. So it's going to stay like that until I achieve it.
And when you've achieved that, what are your new set of goals?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think everything's so fluid, like, because you have these ideas of what you want to do and how you want to achieve things, but everything moves so fast. Other than this COVID period, everything evolves so quickly that you think you could be somewhere and then you end up somewhere else. So I still really want to achieve that third goal. But it may shift because of circumstance or whatever. But yeah, it's just been amazing to be in this environment with these people, with this level of commitment to cricket in this country, with this level of expectation, and this level of expectation around the performance of the players it's been really cool.
Great. And how do you think the Big Bash will go this year, Dre, with obviously all the issues?
I think it'll have a massive TV following. Like, everyone's crying out for sport on TV. Like, I'm watching Nottinghamshire on the live stream. I just turned into an absolute cricket badger. So everyone's crying out for content, and I think it's you always want what you can't have. I think that, we would love to have 40,000 people at the SCG come December, but it's not going to happen. So I think the content will be sought after. Cricket Australia working through the ins and outs of what it's going to look like. They had some pretty harsh feedback from Channel 7 just lately about the quality of the competition. So, yeah, it's going to be it'll be an interesting one, but I think it'll be highly sought after because it's, it's cricket on TV and it's a good competition.
Yeah, great. And just a few questions about yourself over your career, Drake. Who's been the biggest influences on your career?
I've got a few. I think, my dad, obviously, like my dad's like, man, he was a pretty hard taskmaster when it came to the rights and wrongs and the expectation. And then my stepfather, Mike, really, he was pretty hard out, bowling some dirty left arm Chinaman spin in the backyard, and also just like making sure that it's all good, but if you give up, then you're just like everyone else. A guy called Mike McSweeney, who's living in the UK now, took me under his wing when I was 18 from a strength and conditioning point of view, and absolutely thrashed me every Tuesday, Thursday for a couple of years, and gave me a good insight into what strength and conditioning was about, and the resilience required to get through the tough stuff. Tony Sale, first real coach for Auckland, he believed in me pretty heavily, and there's still some stuff that runs through my mind. And particularly when I had 4 wickets in the game, he was like, "You've got to get 5," and so I could hear his voice every time I had 4 wickets. Mick Neill played a really big part in my love of cricket, and so for that I'll be forever grateful. But then it's my teammates, some really amazing teammates: Dion Nash, Brooke Walker, Lou Vincent, Chris Drum, man, there's Rich Jones, and then obviously into the Knots guys, Charlie, Reedy, Eels, Franksy, just so many, Swanee, so many amazing people that I worked with that I thought, they were real influences, because you wanted to be part of their history and part of their culture. So there's so many people I can't distinct. I couldn't just point to one and go, "You're the reason," but there's many influences. Yeah.
Great. And favourite ground you've played on?
My favourite ground in England.
Anywhere.
Favourite ground is Trent Bridge, without a shadow of a doubt. But then I have like these people. So I was actually talking about this in my life the other day. Favourite ground is Trent Bridge. My favourite boutique ground would be Pukakura Park in New Zealand. You probably haven't heard of that. That's where they filmed The Last Samurai. And then, like, my favourite ground to be at cricket at right now is the Adelaide Oval. It is phenomenal. Man, it is phenomenal. Have you been there with a full house?
No, unfortunately not.
Man, what an incredible ground! Like that is undoubtedly the most amazing ground, I think, in world cricket when it comes to full house atmosphere. I got it right with the redesign. The history is amazing. It's a wicked place, yeah.
Great. Okay. And most difficult opponents you've come across throughout your career?
Joe Sarria, just, man. It was like I was bowling to the middle of his bat every ball.
Who was that, Dre? Sorry.
Son of Joe Sarria.
Sarria,
yeah. That was unpleasant memories. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah. No problem. When bowlers at you?
Oh, all of them. Although I struggled most with Murali, it was like trying to pick a broken nose. It was disgusting. It was so difficult. There's lots of fast bowlers when I played, like, Child and Brett Lee, and everyone seemed to be so fast all the time. But really and truly, the one guy I didn't back myself to hit a boundary off would be Joe Sarria. Would be Murali. I just had no idea where the ball was.
Yeah, so trying to avoid Sri Lanka generally.
Yeah, just some scars. Yeah.
And funniest people you've played cricket with, most enjoyable, make you laugh.
David Painter would be right up there with the funniest people, one of the funniest people I've ever played cricket with, and most enjoyable, alongside Graham Swan, as just an absolute genius. One of the funniest guys I've had the pleasure to share a dressing room with, Stephen O'Keefe. Unbelievable. him and Swanee would, if they weren't going at each other, they'd make a great tag team.
Brilliant, brilliant. Great. Well, Dre, thank you ever so much for your time. It's been wonderful to catch up, mate. And I'd like to wish you the best for the upcoming season and Sheffield Shield, Big Bash, etc. But thanks ever so much for joining us, mate, and we'll hopefully catch up soon.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Dre. Thanks for joining us again. Hope you really enjoyed our insight into world cricket with Andre. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and we'll catch you again soon. Bye.